Welcome everybody to Start Strong 2021. My name is Shae Sterrett, the creator and master of ceremonies of this virtual summit for personal evolution. Welcome to day 5 for our 5:30 workshop with Tiffany Calcutt of Harvest Wellness and Nutrition.
Nutrition and wellness.
Nutrition and wellness. She is a registered dietitian, and she's going to be talking to us today about intuitive eating. And the one thing that I discovered about working with her, because I've been working with her the last couple of weeks, is what she really loves to do is help people establish a better relationship with food. It's not so much about diet, losing weight, while those things are important. It's really looking at the deeper relationship with food. So I'm really excited that she's here today to talk about her passion. I do want to remind people that this workshop is being recorded, so if you don't want to show up on social media or a website or YouTube, please go ahead and mute yourself and mute yourself and turn off your video. And if you are interacting with us on Facebook, if you have any questions or comments, please know that we'll be looking at that throughout the workshop. So without further ado, I will hand it off to Tiffany and we will get started. So Tiffany, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Shae. I'm thrilled that you asked me, and I look forward to sharing the next hour with everybody. So I am going to actually ask Shae, before we launch into my introducing myself, I'm actually going to have Shae facilitate a few poll questions so I can get a better understanding of with whom I'm speaking. So they'll just be simple yes or no answers. So Shae, if you're ready, I don't know if that was enough time for you to bring up the questions.
Yes, I do have the questions. And
okay.
It's interesting, the Zoom is not cooperating.
Oh, okay. That happens sometimes.
Oh, here we go. I found it. Got it.
Okay.
Okay. Please hold. I thought this part was going to be so easy. I actually have to type in everything. So if there's anything fun that you want to share with us
Oh, sure. We can go ahead. I can go ahead and introduce myself, and then we can, while you're doing that, let me just bring up open up. I'm already on shared screen, right? So if I open up my presentation, yep. Okay, let's do that. Okay, so let's just make sure that people can see the poll. Actually, they don't need to be able to see that, but can I get a thumbs up that people can see my screen?
We see you.
You see me. Okay.
Yes. So you have to share the screen. Hit the green button at the bottom where it says share screen.
Thank you so much, Gail.
You're welcome. Shae's busy, so I'll help.
So I'm ready to launch the poll.
Oh, okay. Well, let's.
Of course you are. But hey, we spent some time.
Let's. I think I'm going to do one. Let me just get the desktop shared. I hit share, so it should. Okay, hold plus shift to no. Hold on a second. I'm trying to share, but it's.
Do you see the green share screen at the bottom?
You know what it was? Is that the share button was hidden in my window.
So, okay, there we go. We got it.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, so right before we go into from the start, and we'll hold it that way. Let's have Shae post the poll question so we can see. So the first question is, have you ever been on a weight loss diet? Simple, yes, no. And if you don't care to share, that's okay too. I'll still go ahead and do the presentation. And then I imagine, of course, the people on Facebook can't do this, but that's fine. We'll go with whoever is on the Zoom call. Then the next question, did the weight stay off for more than 2 years? And then the final question, well, actually there's 2 more. Do you have a positive relationship with food in your estimation? And then I think there was one more, if you're still able to, did you type a 4th one in there, Shae? Are you familiar with intuitive eating? Okay, maybe it just is at the bottom of the screen and for some reason I can't see it. So let's just see if any more answers come on in, but I won't give it too long. Okay. So lots of other stuff to talk about. So I'm not surprised so far to see, I don't know if the participants can see the results or not, so I'll just read through them, that so far we just have 2 people taking the poll. So both individuals have been on a weight loss diet. One was successful or experienced that the weight stayed off for 2 years, and one found that that wasn't the case. Even split here. So one believes that he or she has a positive relationship with food, and one believes that they don't. And then the 4th question I'll need you to share, Shae, because I can't see the responses.
Can you see it now?
No, I only see 1 through 3.
Oh, okay. It says, are you familiar with intuitive eating? One is a yes and one is a no.
Okay, all right. So sort of a mixed bag here. Some of both, but both of you have some experience with dieting, which I think any female on the planet probably has some experience or knows somebody very close to them that has some experience. So that just helps me have a sense of how to tailor my remarks today. And you're on the right Zoom if you're here to learn about the practice of intuitive eating and how to break the diet cycle. Okay. Let me just, okay, I guess I have to click down there. Sorry, a little bit more about me. So as Shae said, my name is Tiffany Calcutt, and I am a registered dietitian nutritionist. A lot of words to say that I love all things related to food and spent quite a few years studying it and working in that realm. I have a private practice in Peterborough, New Hampshire, and I work with individuals of all ages. I am a mother of 3 girls, ages 8 to 16. And when I'm not parenting or working, I really love being outside. I feel that fills my soul, and I love doing lots of different sports and athletic endeavors. I would call myself an amateur chef because there's definitely a lot of meals to provide and put on the table, but nothing too fancy. But I do enjoy cooking, and I am a aspiring gardener. So mixed success in that realm, but I do enjoy it. And then I also have done kids cooking classes as part of my work. And then I also volunteer coaching. I've coached soccer. Right now I'm helping with some Nordic skiing. And I think one of the most pertinent points to share with you is that while COVID certainly isn't anything we'd wish for me professionally, it made me hit the pause button and reevaluate how I lead my practice. And so I am thankful because not actually being able to be physically together with many of my clients, it also meant I could not ask them to step on a scale. And I realized that I don't need to be asking people to step on a scale to have a sense of, are they finding progress and success? And having the space of quarantine also brought me more onto social media, and I have come to learn a lot through many other professionals in the field who follow the intuitive eating approach. And so I'm thankful to COVID for that, because while I would like to believe it would have hit me upside the head and I would have come to the realization on my own. It really was that pause and that space to reflect, that opened my eyes to what I really like to say is a better way. So what is intuitive eating? Couple different ways to synthesize a heady topic. I mean, there's a lot in there, but a simple way to think about it is a self-care eating framework based on 10 principles. Another way to describe it would be a dynamic mind-body integration of instinct, emotion, and rational thought. As Shae said in the beginning, the purpose is really to help individuals have a positive relationship with food. That's the outcome that is one of the chief outcomes that we're after. And this practice was founded 25 years ago by two dynamic women, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch. The image that you're seeing is the fourth edition of their book that just came out in June, but their original edition was in 1995. And so you may be hearing, it sounds mixed in terms of the audience who has heard of intuitive eating before or not. It does seem to be having its heyday at the present moment. And you even see some diet programs sort of co-opting the term intuitive eating, which is really antithetical to what intuitive eating is all about. But I do believe you'll be hearing more about it if you don't already know about it. So what I'd like to start off with is just reflecting a little bit on what the dieter's dilemma is, because intuitive eating is an anti-diet, non-diet, weight neutral approach to eating. And so to move forward with that, we first have to discuss, well, what's the problem with dieting? Why shouldn't I diet? And we have to recognize that we live in a society that places tremendous value on, the white, thin ideal. It's constructed as, desirable. And so you can't blame somebody for perhaps wanting to be in a smaller body, as superficial a goal that might be. But let's just go with, okay, that's where it all starts, is people feel a pressure, or they think they will be happier, life will be better, they'll get the dream job, they'll whatever it may be if they're thinner, because that's what the media tells us, advertisements tell us that everywhere. So one pursues a diet, all the different crazy diets that are out there. Diets by their nature require one to be restrictive in what they're eating. And it is that precise restriction that leads to physiological cravings. You want more food, you want particular foods because you haven't been able to have them. And we can lose some self-control. That's a natural response to having restricted something. And so what comes next is a loss of control, quite often overeating because we've been denied. And then after that, quite likely regaining of the weight, which then reinforces, the desire to be thin. And so it's this evil cycle that, self-perpetuates, and with each round, causes damage and is likely to worsen. So that's what we have to start off with as the dilemma to dieting. And while it seems in the audience that the results have been mixed as to whether diet led to longer term weight loss, the research and the studies are undoubtedly that about 95% of the people who diet within a 2-year time frame, 2 to 5 years, regain that weight that they lost, if not more. And that's really an astounding figure. And when you hear other success stories, some of the critical questions to ask are, well, okay, maybe in the first 3 months somebody had success, or in the first 6 months, but how about a little bit longer term out there? And what were the the collateral damages of pursuing a certain diet? So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Sorry, I'm just finding the button to advance. So as we talked about, the first part of the dieting is that desire to have a different body shape. Okay, so that's the origin of many individuals' food struggles. And there's a certified eating psychology coach named Jessie Jean, who I was introduced to through podcasts, and I find that she is phenomenal. Highly recommend her podcast, and I'll have a references page at the end of the presentation. She really encourages folks to recognize that when you hear that negative voice inside your head say, I don't like the way my waist looks, or my hips are too broad, to recognize and name what's going on as self-objectication. And particularly women in our society are objectified. You think of like the whistles from, not to stereotype, but whistles from a construction worker as a woman goes down the street, or any advertisement, selling just cigarettes, liquor, by having the woman's body there. And recognizing that when you make comments about yourself as you see your reflection, you're setting yourself as an object. And one of the tools that Jessie Jean suggests is sort of drawing a pie chart. And actually, I meant to say this at the beginning, which is that I invite you to get some paper and pencil or pen, because there are going to be some workshop type of activities that we'll do over the course of this hour. I didn't think anybody wants to listen to me just talk at them for an hour. So I much prefer to be talking with you and guiding some prompts that have been helpful to me. So the idea of the pie chart, and it should pop up when I click this. Yeah. So it's drawing a circle and then thinking, well, what am I? And thinking of all your different roles that are in your life and that comprise who you are as a person. So perhaps a friend, a parent, a daughter, a son, a foodie. So I'll ask you to just take a minute and draw your own pie chart. And of course, it's kind of random whether you assign, like, are you 15% a teacher and 40% a child? That is less the point of this, as opposed to just seeing how multidimensional we are. And so some of these exercises that we're going to do, Shae, I invite you to certainly tell me if you feel like I'm going too fast or too slow.
No, you're doing great.
Okay, because sometimes it'll be hard for me to see where folks are at. I can see Gail, but I can't see everybody. So I'm just going to give it my best guess on the timing. And then, of course, you could always go back and finish it. Or if you watch the presentation, you could do it again. Okay, so we have this pie chart with the notion of a broader definition of who we are, as opposed to just what we're seeing in the mirror. And so the way that Jessie suggests is thinking about some affirmations when that inner critic, and we all have it, when the inner critic comes out, sort of saying, oh, this is the self-objectification going on here. I am a blank. And, for me, it might be, I'm a mother, I'm a dietitian. I love to be outside. So first, something that you are. I am a blank. It's factual, no ifs, ands, or buts. It just is. And that's affirming. Something that you are passionate about or that you love. So I love food. I love the outdoors, whatever it is, something that you love, something that makes you happy, and something that you've overcome. So I have overcome, grieving for a lost parent. I have overcome a mental illness, whatever it may be. We've all overcome certain struggles. And so those are things that can help focus the mind on things that are far more helpful than, wishing you had, fit into a different size pair of pants. And one step further, I would say, or richer and deeper than this notion of body positivity, is body respect. And so I want to pay some respect to two twin sisters that have their PhDs and they're studying body image. So before we get to body respect, and let's just talk about body positivity. So even though we just went through 3 affirmations, that doesn't mean it's not acceptable for you to not love every single thing about your body. So body positivity doesn't mean you're going around saying like, I am like the most beautiful lady ever. I rule the planet. That's not what it's about. But it's recognizing that you are more than a body, and so much more than a body. The pie chart, what you've overcome, what you love. And that's the title of their book, More Than a Body. And so body respect is really appreciating what your body does for you, and seeing it, as your home, and recognizing that you don't have to love everything about it, but it does deserve respect. And intuitive eating is one of the ways of showing that. So Lexi and Lindsay also speak about body resilience, and that is it reminds me of, the word grit. If you talk about somebody who's got grit and they keep going, they fall down, they get back up. And the notion of body resilience is sort of exercising that muscle of acknowledging that you may have some negative thoughts, but not letting them stop you, not letting them keep you from, wearing a particular dress to the cocktail party. Not that we're having cocktail parties right now, or putting on the bathing suit and going to the beach. And that it's recognizing that your body is an instrument. It's not an ornament for other people to be, pleased by. It's your vehicle to get through life. And so embracing what, if in your mind it is that let's say that you're 15 pounds lighter, it's like, okay, well, if I was 15 pounds lighter, would I go to that party? Would I go to my high school reunion? And so it's going to that high school reunion, even though you think you're not where you were hoping to be from a physical appearance standpoint. And that resilience is something you build up over time. And that's something that would be beneficial for all of us to pursue. So that leads me to, as I mentioned earlier, intuitive eating, and what I really feel is a better path than the dieting one. And I chose the image of a baby, toddler, because we are all born intuitive eaters. And the sad thing is that in our society, we are taught as we get older to move away from that. That instinct is broken, but it's not gone forever. So that's the positive thing. And that's what I'm hoping today will be an introduction to, and a little bit of like a teaser to make you want to learn more about it. So there are over 120 published studies that show the myriad benefits of intuitive eating: increased well-being, lower risk of eating disorders, improved blood markers such as blood sugar, the HDL, which is your good cholesterol, certainly greater pleasure from eating, because that's what will also, that's one of the core principles of intuitive eating, and more life satisfaction in general. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that this practice of intuitive eating is it is a privilege for those who do not have food insecurity. So as we go through some of the principles, it will be clear that if you are not certain where your next meal is coming from, it's going to be very hard to feel your fullness, or to that's the one that comes to mind first off, is feeling your fullness, honoring your hunger. I mean, it's just going to be a lot harder if you don't have that food security. So I do want to acknowledge that and put that caveat out there. So now let's talk about intuitive eating, right? So where and how to start. Well, let's just look at Socrates, who said, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." And so I have a little assessment that I'm going to invite you to take part in. So you'll need your paper and you'll need something to write with. And I'm going to go through what's called, it's called really the intuitive eating assessment. And it was created by a woman named Tiffany Calcutt, who did some studies back in 2006, and she really created a foundational platform for assessing intuitive eating. And so what I'd like you to do is I'll ask the questions and just put a check mark or a Y for yes if the statement resonates with you. Okay, so they're going to be about 16 or 17 questions. And then at the end, I'll kind of ask you to tally how many yeses you have. So here we go. The first question, number 1, I try to avoid certain foods high in fat, carbs, or calories. And I'll repeat each one of them. So just, write a yes if it applies to you. Number 1, I try to avoid certain foods high in fat, carbs, or calories. Number 2, if I am craving a certain food, I don't allow myself to have it. Make a check mark if that resonates. If I'm craving a certain food, I don't allow myself to have it. Number 3, I follow eating rules of diet plans that dictate what, when, and or how to eat. Again, I follow eating rules of diet plans that dictate what, when, or how to eat. Number 4, I get mad at myself for eating something unhealthy. I get mad at myself for eating something unhealthy. We're on number 5 now. I have forbidden foods that I don't allow myself to eat. I have forbidden foods that I don't allow myself to eat. Yes or no? Okay, maybe skip a line here and start again with another number 1. I find myself eating when I'm feeling emotional, anxious, sad, depressed, even when I'm not physically hungry. I find myself eating when I'm feeling emotional, even when I'm not physically hungry. Number 2, I find myself eating when I am bored, even when I'm not physically hungry. I find myself eating when I am bored, even when I'm not physically hungry. Number 3, I cannot stop eating when I feel full. I cannot stop eating when I feel full. Number 4, I find myself eating when I am lonely, even when I'm not physically hungry. I find myself eating when I'm lonely, even when I'm not physically hungry. Number 5, I use food to help me soothe my negative emotions. Number 5, I use food to help me soothe my negative emotions. Sorry about that. Number 6, I find myself eating when I am stressed, even when I'm not physically hungry. Number 6, I find myself eating when I'm stressed, even when I'm not physically hungry. All right, hang in there, only 6 more, you're doing it. Number 1, skip a line again, maybe if you can. Number 1, I cannot tell when I'm slightly full. Check mark if that resonates. I cannot tell when I'm slightly full. Number 2, I cannot tell when I'm slightly hungry. I cannot tell when I'm slightly hungry. Number 3, I do not trust my body to tell me when to eat. I do not trust my body to tell me when to eat. Number 4, I do not trust my body to tell me what to eat. I do not trust my body to tell me what to eat. Number 5, I do not trust my body to tell me how much to eat. I do not trust my body to tell me how much to eat. And finally, number 6, when I'm eating, I cannot tell when I am getting full. When I'm eating, I cannot tell when I'm getting full. Okay, so the reason to start with something along these lines of an assessment is that these questions help point out where you may have the most work to do in becoming an intuitive eater. So the first 5 questions were all around like food rules and how we can give ourselves permission to eat no matter what, not having to earn it, not having to follow what somebody else's, being obedient to somebody else's rules. The next 6 questions that I asked were all about eating in response to emotion and emotional reasons as opposed to physical reasons. And that's not to say that intuitive eating says we should never be eating in relationship to our emotions, because we are emotional creatures, and that is part of how we live is having some emotions when we're eating and associating celebrations with eating. And so it's not saying that there's never that connection, but it's trying to hone in on if you can feel those things. And then the final 6 were being able that interoceptive awareness, it's called, of understanding your hunger and your fullness from a physiological stance and trusting your body to tell you that. So if you found that you had a lot of check marks or a lot of yeses, then then it just sort of helps you get a gauge of, like maybe this is something that would help you experience life in a more positive way. And if you didn't have many yeses, then you probably are already quite intuitive as an eater. And I hope that there's still something for you in this presentation. But we can all get there. Okay. So moving on, the first principle of the 10 principles, and I won't be going through all of them in as much depth because we will run out of time if we do that. But the first one is critical as a foundation, and that is rejecting diet culture. And I don't know if you are familiar with the phrase paradigm shift. It comes from Stephen Covey, the 7 Habits of Successful People, I believe is the name of the book. But it's really, turning things on upside down. It's being the black sheep, hence the photo there. And it's, not looking at things the way that everybody else does. Throughout COVID too, I was introduced to a psychiatrist, Dr. Stephanie Reinold, and she has a wonderful series of podcasts called It's Not About the Food. And she likens learning intuitive eating to learning a foreign language in a country that doesn't speak the language. And I thought that was just a great analogy, kind of like going to Italy, living there, but then trying to learn Chinese while you're there. And I think that's a little bit what intuitive eating is akin to in this country, because it's not what all the messages around us are telling us. And yet there's so much truth behind it. And so I would just like to underscore that this is definitely a journey of patience and practice, and not something that you don't read the intuitive eating book and then all of a sudden like, boo, I'm an intuitive eater. It takes work and self-compassion and time, and the book, and there's also a workbook. I referenced it at the end, but there's an intuitive eating workbook which has tons of prompts and sort of helps break down the absorption and the putting into action of the intuitive eating book. In fact, if you're only going to buy one or the other, I would probably buy the intuitive eating workbook, to be honest. So rejecting diet culture. And so some of the steps to rejecting diet culture. The first one, and we're going to do a little bit more writing here, is to recognize the damage from dieting. And so I'm going to ask you to take a minute to just think about, and maybe just jot down a phrase or so. How has dieting affected your social life? And so you could either do this in a, big picture summary sense, like up until this point in your life, or you could do it like on a small, if you pursued a diet last year, how did that affect you? So however you feel it speaks to you. The next question is, how has dieting affected your mind and your mood? How has dieting affected your eating behavior? Maybe this is sort of the easiest one because it's sort of most obvious with each diet because they tend to have so many rules. And then what physical consequences have you experienced from dieting? And then finally, just sort of reflecting how much time and money have you spent in pursuit of weight loss? So these, the answers to these questions are clearly very, very personal and very individual. What I like about the intuitive eating workbook is how it prompts you to think about, to hit pause on how dieting, for most people, steals a lot of life from them. And there are many physical downsides of weight cycling, and we sort of hear the term yo-yo dieting. So you go on a diet, you lose some weight, then it comes back, then you go on another diet, and that is bad for you physically. And then for most people, affecting social life, many people are following rules that it's very difficult to go out to eat. It may be difficult to, enjoy somebody's celebration. And it's always, sometimes it can be a buzzkill or a downer when you're going to be with people and then somebody saying, oh, I'm not eating that, and I can't eat that, and it's not for a food allergy reason, it's just restraints that they're putting them on, and then you're thinking to yourself, oh geez, maybe I shouldn't have that cookie, or it's okay that I'm doing that. And so it sort of can spread sort of negative sort of feeling about food. And so asking if this damage is worthwhile. The second step is being aware of the diet mentality, which is super sneaky and creeps up all over the place. So actually, I wanted to read some sample statements, because even though you may think like, okay, yeah, I'm on board with this first principle, I've done some of these writing prompts, like I reject the diet. I've always thought diets were silly, or now I really believe it. Diets, I promise I'm never going to go on another one. And then there are some statements here that all are examples of the diet mentality, and you can see how they're sort of insidious and how they get in there. So, for example, one of them might be, I usually describe a day of eating as either good or bad. So, that's diet talk. I mean, eating isn't good or bad. Eating is eating. It's a biological need. It's pleasurable. It's not good or bad. I allow myself cheat days when I allow myself to eat whatever I want, regardless of my hunger and fullness level. A cheat day, that's diet talk. I worry about what people think about my eating. That's diet culture, right? Like, why should we care about what other people think about what we're eating? Like, this is my body. I'm hungry. I need to put food in it. You do your thing. I'll do mine. And so a lot of the thoughts of, oh, I don't have the willpower, or they never work. I'm a failure at diets. The need to follow other people's guidelines and be obedient. None of that. That's all diet mentality, and it's not a lack of willpower. It's not a failure that you failed a diet. Diets are failing other people because of that whole cycle that we talked about. The fact that they really don't work for the majority of people over 2 years, they're not going to work. And so the being aware of the diet mentality is something to sort of pay attention to, and not judge yourself harshly for holding on to it. It's what we've been taught. It's what's inculcated in us, but to just sort of pay attention to it. Like, oh, there it is again. Yep, that was a thought. Where'd that come from? I can't eat carbs. Oh, who said that? Oh yeah, diet culture. And the third step is getting rid of dieters' tools. So that is my garbage pail. That is a scale. And that's the first thing. That's also part of this, is breaking up with a scale, because it's a false icon, right? I mean, or an idol. Like, it doesn't, the number on the scale is no measure of your worth. And it's not even a measure of your body composition, right? So, muscle weighs more than fat. So if you have, bigger bones and muscles, that can be healthy, and the scale is going to make you think perhaps something different. So getting rid of that, that's a key step, and recognizing that intuitive eating is, as the word suggests, intuitive. It's from internal cues, not external numbers. And what progress looks like on the journey of intuitive eating is increased trust with of your own body, of yourself, and with food. That's what progress is. It's not the number on the scale. And then the fourth one, and I don't know if anybody who's listening now also got to hear the talk about self-compassion earlier in the summit, but that's a key part of this. So not judging, turning off that inner critic, and sort of being as kind to yourself as you would be to a friend who needed some support, and looking at things with curiosity as opposed to beating yourself up, and saying, oh, this is all, it's a learning opportunity. Intuitive eating is not, it's not pass fail. You're not like on it or off it. It's a journey. And I'm on it. Lots of people are on it, and it's not, oh, you hit the finish line first. It's like, no, we're all learning about our bodies. So it's not pass fail. And just recognizing that, even though it's not one of the principles, self-compassion, it is certainly part of the essence of intuitive eating. And I bet that Dr. Ernesto gives some good tips on how to do that. Okay. Principle number 2 is honoring your hunger. So I don't know if this resonates with you, but I feel a lot of times we're not supposed to feel hungry, or if you feel hungry, that's somehow bad to feel hungry. And I would, invite you to flip that over and think, well, I feel hungry. Like, wow, I'm alive. My body needs fuel. How nice to know everything's working, and that I have an appetite. And so learning about intuitive eating it's experiencing what it feels like to be hunger, and also knowing what does it feel like for you to feel full. And that's something that nowadays we don't always have the time, the absence of distractions to tune into and to ask ourselves, well, yeah, well, what does it feel like when I'm hungry, and how do I know when I'm getting full? What does that feel like in my stomach? What does that feel like, with my energy level? What are the different cues that my body gives me? And so often, you know, there's food around for us all the time that a lot of times it can be, external cues as opposed to internal cues that are driving what we're eating. And so Evelyn Tribole and Elise Rush have something called the Hunger Discovery Scale, where 0 is when you're kind of like that they call it primal hunger. That's when you're hangry and just like you miss the early signs of needing hunger, and now you're just like, get out of my way before I bite your arm. So that's the 0, and at the other end is the 10, and the 10 is, if you think of the quintessential after Thanksgiving, like have to lie down because your belly's so full. And so they suggest a few days, or for some people it's a few weeks of recording actually not what you ate and listing, was it a half a cup of Cheerios or a whole cup? No, we're talking about just like, when did you feel hunger? And when you ate when you ate lunch, were you really, really hungry? Were you feeling pleasant? And then you ate, and sort of just getting a gauge of what those things feel like, and correlating them with what you're choosing to eat. And so knowing the nuances of your hunger. And they have a word that they call this attunement. So when you're attuned to the cues and the messages that your body are telling you. So that's the goal, is to eat with attunement. And the idea of honoring your hunger goes further than that, in the sense that it explains what can get in the way of eating with attunement. And there are a lot of things that can get in the way. And a lot of them fall under this bucket of self-care, and how important good self-care is to being able to eat with attunement. And so their book lists behaviors that are positive in the self-care realm, and those that disrupt being able to be in attunement. And so I'm just going to read a couple of them, because I think they help illuminate the point a little bit. And they are in 5 different categories of self-care. So the physical, the emotional, relationships, spiritual, and boundaries. So, for example, you might say, well, wait a minute, boundaries. What does boundaries have to do with eating? And so an example of a disruptor of attunement in the boundaries category would be a statement like this. I feel the need to make others happy. So if you're feeling the need to make others happy, you can sort of connect that back to eating with attunement. Maybe the example is, Aunt Betty at Thanksgiving really wants you to eat her, yam casserole or something, and you don't like yam casserole and you don't want any, but you feel like you need to eat it because it's Aunt whoever I said her name was, Aunt Patty. So that's an example of it. Another could be, I have a hard time saying no to people's requests. So if you find that, like, yeah, that's me, how does that connect back to eating with attunement? Well, if you are maybe taking on more than what's healthy for you and that you can manage, maybe that means that you're not able to take the breaks from screens and from the media to have your food and eat your food, in peace. And so it's really interesting to see how these different areas of self-care connect back. In the emotional realm, for example, if you feel like, well, yeah, I don't know how to relax, if that statement resonates with you, you could see, well, yeah, geez, if I'm not really very good at relaxing at most things, maybe I'm not going to, like this person in the hammock here, you see, like he's relaxing. And maybe if you're a person who doesn't allow yourself to slow down and relax, maybe you eat your food really quickly because you just got to get on to the next thing. So I found it really interesting to see how integral self-care is when it all comes back or ties in with eating habits. Now, we're going to skip over a couple principles and we're going to go to principle 5. It's the third of the principles that I'm going to go through in a bunch of detail because I want to make sure respect your time and finish at the appropriate hour. Even though this is number 5, the satisfaction factor, as it's called, is really, we also could have started with that. So it doesn't come until number 5, but it really, the authors, Evelyn and Elise, describe it as like a bicycle wheel, and at the center, at the hub, is this notion of satisfaction, and the spokes on the bicycle are the other principles. The 10 other principles. Really, satisfaction is sort of counted twice, but the notion is what can be behind the motivation of intuitive eating anyway, which is, do you like to feel satisfied when you eat? And that's what's at the core of intuitive eating, is how to experience satisfaction and pleasure with food, and being in the mindset that you can trust your body to do that, and that it's okay to experience pleasure from food. Actually, that we're programmed for that biologically. And so the example of the restaurant is, if you, once we're all vaccinated, or when COVID's gone, and you're going out, let's say you're going out to your favorite restaurant and you're excited to go, and I bump into you and I offer you your favorite sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, turkey and Swiss, whatever it is. I offer your favorite sandwich right before you're going to go out to dinner. And I said, would you like to have that? And I think most of you would probably say, no, I'm going to go out to dinner. Like, I'm not going to be hungry for I can't wait to get to that restaurant and have my favorite entree or appetizer. And that is, a concrete example of satisfaction, that we recognize that food tastes better when we actually are a little bit hungry for it, and that there are diminishing returns. Maybe you've heard the saying like that, the first bite of dessert is always the best, and as you get to the whatever 7th, 8th bite, it's not as satisfying. It doesn't hold that same taste. And so if you put satisfaction at the center of eating, that's the way it should be. And the Japanese actually have one of their principles for health promotion. In the United States, we have the dietary guidelines. In Japan, they have one that recommends that pleasure that all eating occasions and experiences be pleasurable, or have pleasure. And so they have some wisdom in prioritizing that. And to have satisfying eating, one of the key principles is to eat slowly. So it's sort of easy to remember the S's here: slowly, sensually, and to savor it. So if I were to break that down, the slowly, maybe this is what you think of if you've heard the term mindful eating. You really take it in and you slow down the pace. And sensually is having all your senses involved. So, it's what do you feel like eating from do you want something crunchy? Do you want something creamy? Is there a certain aroma that's pulling you in? What colors do you feel like seeing on your plate? So having it be a full experience. And then savoring is also just connected with slowing down, right? And enjoying the real taste. And that's why I showed these gals having pizza. So intuitive eating isn't, it's certainly not about eating ice cream 24/7, but it's also not about never eating ice cream. It's if there's something that you really would like to eat, it's hitting pause on everything else and really enjoying that and appreciating that. Allowing yourself to have it is probably actually going to prevent you from wanting to overeat it. And often if we really want a potato chip, but we substitute a rice cake and we substitute, I don't know, a piece of toast, like we often can just like eat our way around the whole thing. But what we really wanted, if we just had a few potato chips in the beginning, that probably would have met, our need there. So the remaining principles, and I'm mindful of 5 minutes left, so I want to leave time for questions. So I'm just going to read them in case you were just like dying to know what they were. So number 3 is making peace with food. Number 4 is to challenge the food police. Number 6 is to feel your fullness. Number 7 is to cope with your emotions with kindness. Number 8 is to respect your body. Number 9 is movement. Feel the difference. So I think in their first version, they might have called that exercise. But, as they have evolved in their teachings, I think exercise sometimes can have negative connotations for people. So it's more about what feels good for your body. And number 10 is honoring your health with gentle nutrition. So this is where, and it's number 10 on purpose, because this is where it's recognizing that, yes, you can have, jelly donuts and you can have ice cream, but it's also, bringing in that rational mind of, well, I do know it's good to eat some vegetables. So it's sort of marrying like what you feel like in the moment with some sound science and sense. But it's the 10th principle, and it's not, some people are not ready to start with that. It's much more important to start with the notion of, hey, you know what, I'm going to eat things that are satisfying, and in time that will have balance. And I'm also going to reject the need for a diet. So those are the principles. And I just wanted to share a couple comments from some other folks that I'm working with on intuitive eating and what their experience has been like. Kelly says, I'll never get back the time I spent letting food control me, but I can embrace my future knowing I have made peace with food. I find that encouraging. And another client says, I'm learning so much more about myself than just the issues that stem from a lifetime of chronic dieting. It goes so much deeper than that. And I hope by some of the writing prompts and questions, you can see that intuitive eating is, it encompasses a lot. It's not just about the food, as Dr. Reinhold says. And so if you're interested in learning more, I definitely encourage the intuitive eating workbook. This is what it looks like. And it's in the references as well. I don't know, but it's by the same authors, Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch. I also do one-on-one nutrition counseling. It is usually covered by most insurance companies. So if that might be of interest to you, my contact information is there. And I also do guided group sessions with regard to intuitive eating. So you could be part of a class. And so I'd love to hear from you if you have any further questions about this or any comments. Well, here are their references. But I have just, there are a couple minutes left. I do have to end at 6:30 because there's another presenter, but I'd love to take any questions. Sorry, I rambled so much.
No, you did wonderful. And I put a lot of links in the Facebook group while you were talking.
Oh, good.
Yep, so people can go and reference that for your website, some of the books that you recommended, some of the speakers that you recommended.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I mean, as someone who, I think when you and I first met, I told you I've been dieting since I was 6, so as someone who has really struggled with that my whole life, I think this is such a even though it's been around for 25 years, to me, it's a very new way to look at food and relationships. And it goes so much against the American culture, which I think is why, like you said, it's like learning another language. So.
Yep, it is. And I'm loving the journey. I think it is. It does seem like what been around for 25 years. How's that possible? But I guess sometimes, gems take a while to be discovered. And I think it is going to come into its heyday, and hopefully, I don't know how much money there is to be made in it. That's really what it always often comes down to, right? Like who's making money off of this, because those tend to be the things that stick around.
Yeah.
Not a lot of products to sell to be an intuitive eater.
Yeah.
And that's the point. You don't need any products. You don't need any shakes. It's relearning what the instincts you're born with.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because a lot of the tools that we've been learning over the last couple of days, it's not stuff you have to buy. It's your breath, it's your movement, it's your self-awareness, it's how you fuel your body and your soul. So didn't realize that till just now.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. Well, gosh. Well, I just want to honor you and your time and your wisdom and your passion for this. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Shae. And thank you for being here, participants. Nice to meet you.